Oh, those are cool. Yeah. Oh, bugger. That is a fucking mess. What is that? That's chain loop, right? So with the front sprocket cover missing, chain loop is just going to fly all over everything. As you can clearly see, it's all over the ignition switch, which is conveniently located right in front of it. It's all over the engine casing. And what the hell is that? That's a ground wire? Oh my God. Fuck. Clamp. Oh, there's another one with no clamp. And another with no clamp. That one appears to have a clamp. Nope, no clamp on that one either. Oh, there's a clamp on the fuel line. How does he put clamps on the fuel line but all the vacuum ports? And then there's this one. Will this explain why the bike runs at 3,000 RPM at a traffic light? Oh, there's a clamp. Wow. Wow. Is that loot? Oh. This is empty. Where's all the fluid? Is this leaking? Oh. Right, yeah. Of course it is. You can see the wetness right there. And is this fastener supposed to wiggle like that? Listen to that. Looks like we got some leakage here on the clutch as well. Oh, this is super dry. It doesn't even spring back. Oh, fuck. If not springing back, the choke slide has no return on it at all. There's no index. There's nothing to bring it back. There's nothing to hold it out. So while you're riding, vibration, the choke could just... Oh. I guess this would be the license plate light. As you can see, they put a lock washer in there so it doesn't vibrate loose. And the wiring, boy, there's no way this is ever going to get snagged or caught on anything. And the attention to waterproofing, and yeah, that's the goods right there. Huh. The bolt doesn't even come all the way through. It doesn't grab the entire nut. There doesn't appear to be a lock washer on it. It's not nylon lock. It's just... Jack, at this time, I think it's a good idea that you go and grab yourself a delicious drink from the fridge, because we've got a lot to talk about here. I didn't exactly know where to start with your bike, because when you initially brought it in, your claim was that the bike runs away at 3,000 RPM and at the traffic light, and you don't know why. It just started doing that all of a sudden. Actually, I'll take the phone out of the tripod. The reason this happened, and I know I texted you a photo of this earlier, but the reason this happened is because this vacuum port has a rubber bung that looks just like this one that goes on top of it, and it popped off. All of these rubber bungs should have a clamp on them. You see how easily they turn. Should have a clamp on them to hold them in position. And it's a little bit curious that that the vacuum ports don't have clamps on any of them, but that the fuel line does. It's like somebody knew that, you know, if a fuel line comes undone, that it could be potentially dangerous. But they were also, I don't know, neglectful, or just didn't think that it mattered all that much to put a rubber bung on these, or sorry, to put a clamp on these rubber bungs. Now, if I were to attempt to climb the head of whoever built this bike, I'm going to guess that one of the reasons why I just noticed that the crankcase breather pipe has got a zip. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, one of the reasons why they didn't put clamps on these bungs is because the engine draws vacuum and it pulls air in this venturi through the carburetor, picks up fuel, dumps in the combustion chamber, and boom, the engine runs. That means that this passageway after the carburetor, predictably, is all vacuum, right? It's pulling, which means there's really, mechanically and physically no way for these to pop off if they're always being sucked on, right? That means they're being sucked into position. And, you could somewhat rely on the fact that with the suction, it can't pop off. It's literally being pulled on there. But if there was, for whatever reason, a backfire due to improper timing, cam timing, or anything like that at all, you miss a shift, blah, 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 there is a potential for the backfire to go all the way back through this venturi and get stopped by the butterfly valve inside this carb. It has no place to go. And it looks for a way to get out. And as a result, it pops that bung right off of there. And that's why you were riding the bike, everything was fine. And then you got your next traffic light. You didn't even know you suffered a backfire. That or, it wasn't put on all the way. These come off pretty easily. I'm just pulling this with my finger. And as you can see, it comes loose pretty easily. There are a number of little things on your bike that are loose and otherwise just not potentially cared for. This master cylinder, is supposed to be vertical like that, right? Not horizontal. And part of the way that we know this to be true is because if this was meant to be a horizontal master cylinder, this intake port where the brake fluid resides, it goes in, wouldn't be on a 90 degree. It'd be straight up, right? Like it would just be straight up like this, and there'd be like a little beaker up here traditionally. And so they just laid this down. Now, while this can work, the possibility of this little air bubble right here going back up, see? It goes back, there it is. The potential of it going back up into the master cylinder and causing problems with how the brake operates is entirely possible and plausible. You might notice that this, I'm going to say, AliExpress purchased master cylinder reservoir, it looks cool, I gotta say. It really does look cool. I've seen this before, but it looks to me that the rubber is deformed inside the casing. And I think the reason why the rubber or the hose that's inside there that acts as a reservoir is deformed is because it's not fuel and oil grade. I think it might be food grade. Like rubber hosing for food machinery and stuff like that. It's not meant to house oil or gasoline, and that's why potentially deforming. I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty confident that's what it is. I've seen deformed see-through hoses like this in the past, and it's pretty common that that's the reason. Also, just that this bounces around while you're riding, that bubble can be, you can see it'll separate with just a little bit of bouncing. Now there's two of them, see? And there's potential for trouble. Forget about the fact that there's no front sprocket cover, that there's no chain guard, that there's no rear fender, and you probably noticed that I pulled your fork seal dust covers down. I'm going to explain, just pause for a second. I tested the reg rec, it's good. I tested the stator, which is on the other side, it's also good. But little things like this, oh man. It makes me want to ask you, please, can I just go over this bike for you? And just go over a bunch of things that I've noticed that are just like, are you serious? Like, and there's a few of them, right? Like they all just sort of present, like, it just looks to me like whoever built this was just in a hurry and just wanted to get it out the door under your bum as quick as possible and claim their cash. And as a result, what you were left with, I won't say is a danger or a hazard, but on that subject, I'm going to mention this right now. I'm going to put this in the clamp. So I was looking at why your master cylinder was leaking. This is your front brake master cylinder, and although you may not be able to see it on camera very well, it is completely empty of brake oil. I think you mentioned that you called the shop and said, hey, there's oil leaking all down everything. It's all wet and everything. What do I do? And they mentioned just to fill it up, and fill it back up. And that to me is just possibly the worst bit of advice I think they could possibly offer you. I mean, part of it is accurate. It does need oil, but the question is, where did the oil go? And why is the oil leaving this teeny tiny little food grade? Yeah, that's food grade. AliExpress purchased master cylinder. So I went and checked this banjo bolt here with an Allen wrench, sorry. And it is tight. I'm gonna put a wrench on there. It is tight. But then when I was trying to turn it, I noticed that your front brake lever and your throttle control is not loose. The entire handlebar is. Right? I'll take this wrench off. Look at this. Right? And just for perspective here, I'll put a little yellow dot on there just so you can see what I mean. Because the camera doesn't often show it very clearly, but we'll just put this little dot right there. Just like that. And then we'll zoom in, and I'll put my hand on the brake, and I'm just going to turn. They sold you a bike with loose handlebars. I can't tell you how incredibly dangerous this is. I mean, I think you already know. I'm just disappointed, I know the guys that built this bike. I'm not going to mention their names. And I'm disappointed. I understand that we make mistakes. I understand that there's a potential the phone rang or somebody was talking to the technician or distracted or something was going on, and that details are left not observed. But I don't know, man. I'm really hoping that you're going to give me the green light to check out your bike, because I don't mean to be like fleecing these guys or making them seem unprofessional or anything like that at all. But it's just dangerous. It's just dangerous. And if I could just go over a number of things on this bike, if not everything, I could probably send you out of here on a bike that feels somewhat confident to ride. So let's get down to that too. You probably remember that I did a couple of videos. I'm not sure if you saw them, but I did a couple of videos on steering head bearings. And yep, I'm going there with your bike, my friend. Steering head bearings on your bike are pretty close to set too tight, I think is probably the best way to describe it. They're not worn out. You actually haven't ridden this bike at all, right? Like if you look at the tread on this, like all the little dealy bobs are still here. The Conti Attack is usually the first to be rubbed out when you ride a bike. And yours has got plenty, like you didn't ride this bike at all. But the steering on your bike is, it should be fluid and smooth all the way through, left to right, without any interruption at all. And what kind of surprises me about this is if there is interruption, if it is not smooth left and right, then this is an indication the bearings are worn out. But your bike hasn't been ridden, which means whoever went through the incredible detailed task of taking this CBR front end and attaching it to this 03, 04 Bonneville bike, they had to go through quite a few sets of bearings and spacers and pay attention to how these handlebars, like how the front end of this bike will attach to the rest of the bike, right? Like they right down to the steer stops that they installed but didn't lock down. And the reason why I know that they're not locked down is because you can see there's a little wear mark below the steer stop, but the steer stop has been pushed quite literally by the stop itself into the back position, or in this case, I guess the front position. You see that little mark in there, that little half moon? There's the fastener, and right behind it, there's a little sliver moon right there. That's where the steer stop was originally. And now that it's been smashing up against the steer stop like this, it has pushed that steer stop back. So somebody's been in here. Somebody has gone through some good work. Like it's really a beautiful bike. But for them to have over tightened these steering bearings and to present this bike to you this way, I just, frack. I pulled your dust covers off because these forks are not for this bike. The forks are made for a CBR, I'm guessing. Tokiko front end, but Tokiko calipers, but Showa shocks or forks. I'm guessing this is probably CBR. It could be something else, but same on that steer stop there as well. Could be something else, but there it is. And you can even see that there's just the teeniest little marks on your steer stop, which basically shows that you've not ridden this bike. If I could focus on it. And I can't because I'm not a cameraman. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not important. It's just one of the many little things that need to be dealt with. Anyway, I took the dust covers off of your fork seals because when I saw oil on the dust covers, I thought, oh no, his fork seals are not leaking. And they're not. Thankfully, where the oil is coming from is from the master cylinder reservoir, which I explained earlier, is leaking. And so is the clutch. Oil is leaking down and getting on here. But then, confirming that your fork seals are not leaking, I can clearly see signs of stiction on these forks. And I know you're probably looking at the reflection of my camera in the forks, but you should be looking at these Waverly lines right here. There's one here, one there, and that's a sign of stiction. It just means, again, that the attention to how this front end was built could have been observed a little bit more closely and potentially... Anyway, my friend, this is why your bike runs at 3,000 RPM. And I have to say, this throttle response offers little to no slack at all. I'd like to at least put my gauges on these carbs and see to it that they're synchronized properly. I'm sure that they are based on the build quality of this bike. I'm sure those carbs are number one. I'm sorry to be so glib about this video. There are lots of great parts about this bike and the way that it was built, but there are also some other things that just kind of make me saying this wouldn't have been my decision. Like, for example, running the exhaust, beautiful, up through here. Like I really love, it's great. However, putting hot exhaust right next to a carburetor float bowl, you're going to boil the gas. Hottest days in summer, and you know the summers have been getting hot here, stopped at a traffic light for even as much as a minute. That, the fuel inside there, you could, anyway. All right. Man. Got to be fucking kidding. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. Oops. That's the lower triple. I'm going to put a wrench in here. That's tight. That's tight. Nice. Up here. That's tight as well. So I guess that just means that this handlebar is just loose. Not only does it rotate up and down here, which is a fucking joke, but even with the lightest touch, and I'll use a paint marker again, just to show you what's happening. Even with the lightest touch, put a pen mark right on top of that, right? Right, you can see that little pen mark there? That wipes off, don't worry. I'm not going to ruin your mojo here. But okay, so there it is lined up. My hand, lightest tap. Ready? It's loose. Fuck. What happens is you're riding down the street at a fairly good clip. right? And something jumps out in front of you. Could be, I mean, this never happens on the street, right? Never. But something jumps out in front of you. A pedestrian, a car changes lanes without, a ball, a kid, whatever. Something jumps out in front of you and you think, hey, I know how to avoid hitting whatever it is that's jumped out in front of me. I'm just going to grab the front brake. And when I do, what ends up happening is all of your body weight moves forward and you push on these handlebars with all of your body weight plus the momentum of your body being stopped by the application of the brakes. You will physically push this handlebar forward. You saw me hitting it like that. Think about me, that's just my hand, I'm just hitting it like this. But with your body weight behind it, you can literally push those bars. Ay, caramba.